This is a brief video that is going to go over Project 3, heights and weights. So for this project, we are going to be using data set number 4 on StatDesk. It's titled Measured and Reported. This is data from 5,755 adults who report their height in inches and their weight in pounds. And then they actually go and measure these values and get the accurate readings for their heights and their weights to see those differences. So this is an individual project, and each student will submit their own project solutions. You can work together, however, your wording and solutions need to be unique for you. If two projects have exact same wording, then 0 points will be given for that part. The project needs to be typed and also completed in order, and then make sure you label each part. We are using StatDesk again, and projects need to be uploaded to Canvas by the due date as a single PDF file. Very important on that. Make sure that you input those screenshots into the correct spot. Points for each part are listed, and total points that can be earned are 45. So parts 1, 2, 4, 6, 7, and 8, they're starred below, must have screenshots from the output from StatDesk. No points are rewarded for using a graphing calculator. You do need to use StatDesk. So screenshots should be legible and inserted into the project in the correct question number. You also must provide and clearly state the specific answer. So don't just put the screenshot, make sure you put down the answer also. Explanations need to be written in complete sentences. Show work for all calculations such as z-scores and outliers. All answers need to be rounded 4 decimal places. So make sure you round everything 4 decimal places. So the objective of this project is to gain knowledge working with a statistical computer program. So again, the parts that are starred are the ones that we are going to need to use StatDesk, and we'll look at that in a moment. So the first one is finding the mean and the standard deviation of the measured weights in pounds of the adults. So we do need to make sure you use the measured weights. There are a lot of different options here, and it does need to be in pounds. 2 is using the data, find a 92% confidence interval of the measured weight in pounds of the 5,755 adults. It also does say to interpret your results. So if you don't remember this, go back and look at your notes for chapter 7. Part 3 says what needs to be verified to conduct a hypothesis test to determine if the mean measured weight in pounds of the 5,755 adults is different than 180 pounds. So really quick, this is not asking you to actually find it. It's just asking for what needs to be verified for finding the mean measured weights and being different than 180 pounds. So definitely go back and look at when we did hypothesis testing for a single mean, which would be in chapter 8. Number 4 says using the data, test the claim using the p-value method. So make sure you use the right method, that the mean measured weights in pounds is different than 180 pounds at a 5% significance level. It does say to make sure you include your null alternative hypotheses, your test, so make sure you find your p-value and test it, and then also to state your conclusions as we do in our class notes. Make sure you use the same wording. So number 5 is going to be what are the requirements needed to verify. So again, now we're verifying to conduct a hypothesis test involving the mean measured heights in inches and so there's 2 things here, and the reported heights in inches. So this time it's the measured height and reported height in inches. So make sure that you understand that this time, instead of just there being one group of data, we're using 2 groups, and what exactly we have to verify for this, and that would be in chapter 9 notes. Number 6 says using the data, test the claim at the p-value method, again the same method, that the mean measured weight in pounds of our adults is different than the mean reported weight in pounds of the adults at a 5% significance level. Again, make sure to include your null alternative, your p-value, your testing, and your conclusions as done in class. Number 7, it says using the data, test the claim, this time using the confidence interval method. And you'll notice that number 6 and number 7 are pretty much identical in the wording except for the approach that we are using. So for number 6, it's asking you to use the p-value method. Number 7, it's asking you to use the confidence interval method. Number 8 says determine the least squares regression line. And this is coming from chapter 10 notes. This is the line of best fit with the measured weight in pounds being the x variable and the measured height in inches being our y variable. Significance level is not needed to calculate the slope and the y-intercept of the least squares regression line. Again, it just wants the equation of that line. Number 9 says, using the data from Statistica on presidents' weights, select the current or previous president of the United States and their weight in pounds. See image on the last page of handout for additional guidance. The U.S. president needs to have their first, middle, and last name starting with the same letter as either your first or last name. For example, my name is Laura Wolgzogen, so I can either pick somebody who has an L starting with their first or last name, or a W starting with their first or last name, or a middle name. And I could select president, and I'll choose Warren G. Harding as the president to select. This is for 1 point. And again, this is a link on here, and more information is given below. And we'll look at that shortly. Number 10 says to calculate the expected height in inches of the U.S. president that you selected in part 9 using the least squares regression that you used in part 8. So you're using both part 9 and part 8 for this. And then 11 is calculating the z-score. So this time we want the z-score of the U.S. president that you selected in part 9 above. And it asks if it's significantly low, significantly high, or not significant. It does say to round for this project 4 decimal places, so make sure around your z-score 4 decimal places. So right below this, it does say how to access our data using StatDesk. And so going from data sets, 14th edition, and then find number 4 data set that's called measured and reported. It is shown in the image and then also written right below and starred. So to view the presidential weight data for number 9, I did put the actual web address here, but it is a link up above. And so for this, you will see that there is a list of presidents. So again, find one that starts, he either has to have first name, middle name, or a last name that starts with your first or last name initial. And so with that, you'll notice that with the presidents, they're given in both pounds and kilograms, so make sure you select the one that says pounds. And so then that way it's comparing correctly. And so again, you can either copy and paste this web address to see them or use the link that's up above. Our data set that we have that's given to us that web address, you'll notice that, and I'm going to zoom in here, we have a list of all the presidents, and you can expand your statistic to see even more. And you'll notice that not only are they given in pounds, but they're also given in kilograms. So you're able to select any of these and it will pull it up. I am using a tablet too. It does look a little different if it's on a phone or if it's on a computer. So definitely go through and try these and find a president that matches with your first or last name starting letter. Okay, I'm going to transfer over to StatDesk here. And so for StatDesk, we had calculating our mean and our standard deviation. And then we also had confidence intervals. The mean and standard deviation we've done plenty of times before, so hopefully we are good on that. And again, to get our data, the first thing that you need to do is go to data sets, which is go to 14. Number 4, it's measured and reported, and it should input all that data in for you. And then in order to get our descriptive statistics, we select this and then make sure you select the correct column to use and then evaluate. So that would be for the first problem. The second one that we have is asking for a confidence interval. And so you'll notice that with confidence intervals, you either have one proportion, two proportions, one mean, two independent means, or means match pairs, which means that they are dependent data and you have two sets. So make sure that when you read through these problems, you understand which one that you need to select. I also want to note that you guys can, rather than typing in any information, you can actually use the data. And so it will say the confidence level, you can edit that. And then choosing what actually you need to use for our project. Be careful because the measured weights are in pounds and in kilograms, and we are using pounds. Just like with height, it's used in inches and centimeters. We are using the inches ones. And then population standard deviation, if known. We do not know that, so you would leave it blank. We also need to do hypothesis testing. And so again, with this, there's a couple different parts on here that do have hypothesis testing using your p-value approach. And so in order to do this, we would go to hypothesis testing. You either have one proportion, one mean, or two means or two proportions, and you need to determine if your data is independent or dependent. So again, just looking at this, you can use your data, and from here you can select your significance level, your claimed mean. You can adjust what your alternative hypothesis is, and then it does say population standard deviation if known, which we do not know, and then using your correct column to calculate this. And likewise for using our two means and going through that exactly the same. The other part that we have is from chapter 10, which is correlation and regression. So from analysis, if you hit correlation and regression, you'll notice that on here you can adjust your significance. There is a value here to select your X value that we have, and then also your Y value, and it does state what each one is for your project. And then you would go ahead and select evaluate. So the other part that we have with confidence intervals and doing that test, we do have confidence interval. You do need to, this one for our project and number 7, where it does say to use the confidence interval method and checking to see if 0 is in that interval. To calculate that, it does give us two different data sets. So you have to think about, are these data sets independent or dependent? And select the right one that you would have to do and get your confidence interval and then interpret it. Again, looking back at chapter 9 notes would be helpful for that. Make sure to carefully read the announcements that are posted about the project and submit it early for that rough draft due date feedback. And then also stop by any of our tutoring centers, especially the Marks, for help, or visit me during office hours. Get an early start.